Hello, welcome back to Homeschool Wherever. My name is Carmen Sognonvi, and in this video, I am going to go over some of the supplemental materials we're going to be using this school year in our homeschool for 2020-2021. So these supplemental materials are basically the things that we are adding on as sort of extra stuff or enrichment in addition to our core subjects. And our core subjects are, of course, math, language arts, science, and history. So if you want to see what we're using for those core subjects, check out part 1 of this series. I'm going to link that below. So if you're new to our channel, we are a secular, multiracial family living in New York City. We're starting homeschooling for the very first time this year. We have 2 daughters, one in the 3rd grade and one in 6th grade. This channel is all about documenting our homeschooling journey, so if that sounds of interest to you, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Also, we are full-time family travel creators, so if you want to see that side of our lives, go check out our travel channel at Top Flight Family. Okay, so as I mentioned, this video is all about the supplemental or the extra materials that I picked up that I plan to incorporate in some of our homeschooling. So when we start out, I'm really going to be focused on the core subjects because those are the things that are obviously most critical. And to be honest, I'm not sure yet exactly how I'm going to be incorporating these additional materials, but I imagine they'll be kind of sprinkled through. But of course, our main emphasis is going to be on those core subjects. So the first resource I picked up is something that actually I stumbled across on Amazon and came up as recommended, and it's a book called Philosophy for Kids: 40 Fun Questions That Help You Wonder About Everything. The book is set up in a really simple way. So every chapter has a scenario that kids can relate to. So for example, you borrowed your friend's calculator and now he wants it back. What is the just thing to do? And then it'll provide 4 choices for the kids to choose from. And then once the kids have chosen, you can get into a discussion, and the chapter also gets into the concept. So what does it mean to be just? What does it mean to be fair? And it'll introduce one philosopher and talk about their concepts around justness or fairness or whatever is the topic of that particular chapter. So I like how it's very bite-sized and something that you could probably spend just 5 minutes on per day. And this is not something we're necessarily going to do every single day, but I think it's a nice addition to our curriculum. And it's also a great way to bring in some discussions around ethics. Now, I will note that this book is definitely quite Eurocentric. And also the chapter about Confucius is a little weird, like the specific thing that they chose to highlight about his philosophy, which to me is not at all kind of what he's about. You know, I'm Chinese, so I know a little something about it. But anyway, I might get into that in more detail in a future video. But overall, I think this may be a good introduction to philosophy and some of these questions, and we can always dig into some philosophers from other parts of the world as our homeschool kind of continues. So the second resource I also stumbled across on Amazon is Geography, Map, and Activities, and it's published by Rand McNally, who are of course known for their maps and atlases, things like that. So even though we are a travel blogger family, I have to say that my girls seem embarrassingly uninformed when it comes to geography. And they actually were like, the other day, they were like, what is geography? So it doesn't seem like they have been studying this at all in any kind of organized way in public school, which again is very embarrassing when you are a travel blogging family. So when I came across this book, I decided to buy the beginner version, and then later on we'll move on to the intermediate, because even though it's recommended for kids ages 6 and up, and it's pretty basic, pretty simple, I definitely think there are a lot of holes to fill in my girls' knowledge of geography. So we're going to start with basic and then move on to intermediate, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there. So the next item is Discovering Great Artists. And I think this is a pretty popular book. I'm definitely not the first to mention this, but it is basically an approach to teaching kids art history. So every chapter talks about a specific artist, has like a brief bio of them, talks about why they are important in the art world. But what I like about it is that each chapter also has a hands-on art activity so that kids can right away start making art, and it's always something that is related back to something that that artist is known for. So I think we're going to be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you'll forgive the expression, with this book, because it has the art history element, but then it also has the hands-on making art element, which is going to be a really important part of our homeschool because my girls both really like to make art. However, I think it's a great supplement to be able to introduce my girls to different artists in kind of an organized, structured way. So the next resource is basically the music version of the art book that I just talked about, and it's called Meet the Great Composers. So one thing you may not know about me is that I come from kind of a musical nerd family. My mom was an amateur classical or opera singer, and my dad dabbled in composition quite a bit and actually did fairly well at certain points, even like got some commissions from the Belgian government and stuff like that. So at one point he was a fairly successful sort of amateur composer. So I, as the good Asian girl that I am, grew up playing piano basically all of my life. And throughout high school, I was actually a pretty good pianist. I was always a little bit lazy when it came to practicing, so I feel like I never reached my peak potential, to be honest. But I taught piano, so that was actually my part-time job all through high school, was teaching piano. I also got very into composition when I was in high school, studied that as part of my A-levels, which is sort of like the grades 12 and 13 in the British school system. And at one point I even seriously was considering maybe going into film scoring, because that seemed like kind of a cool thing to do. But life happened, and my life moved in a different direction, kind of left music behind a little bit, but it is still a big part of my life. And I think it's important for kids to sort of know a little bit about classical music. They don't need to be experts, but at least, have a sense of at least what are the main different periods, a few composers. So this is not something I'm going to be sweating a lot, but I think in general, it's just really important to bring arts into the home, into your homeschool curriculum. And so this is going to be a great way to do that. So I ordered this book. I haven't received it yet. I think it was on back order, but I believe it also comes with a CD. So as you learn about each composer, you can also listen to some of their important pieces. But even if you get the version without the CD, it's pretty easy nowadays with streaming to be able to find all of these pieces on Spotify or whatever streaming service you use for music. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to kind of delving into that a little bit with my girls. So the next resource has to do with handwriting. So for my third grader, Ella, I got her Printing Power, which is a workbook from Handwriting Without Tears, which if you're not familiar with that, they are a, I guess, publisher that puts out educational content, and they're really known for teaching like young kids, like preschoolers, things like that, how to handwrite properly. So I used some of their materials in the past, especially when the girls were really little, and I've always liked Handwriting Without Tears' approach. So we are going to be incorporating some of that, and I think it'll just be a nice thing that the girls can work on independently. So as I mentioned, I got Printing Power for Ella, who's in the third grade. And then for Sean, I got Cursive Kickoff. And Cursive Kickoff is kind of a book that combines a little bit of block letters and then moves gradually into cursive. So Sean actually independently last year started learning cursive herself. So she already has a background in it, but I think it'll be good to do this book so that she can sort of firm up the block letters and then learn the cursive in kind of a structured way. So again, with this, handwriting is not something I sweat that much, to be honest. Or I definitely think it's much less important than when I was a kid, since we're typing everything nowadays, but it is definitely a good life skill, and again, something that is nice for them to just be able to work on independently. Okay, so if you want to find out what we are using in terms of curriculum for our core subjects of math, language arts, science, and history, be sure to check out that video. That is part 1 of our curriculum series. If you didn't already, please subscribe and turn on your notifications. Also be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Homeschool Wherever. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.